Why do you support Trump?
You just want to go like one reason at a time.
Wait, say that one more time.
Okay. Yeah, I suppose you just want to go like one reason at a time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So something personally that I do like with regards to Trump, I think that his position on gender is superior than Kamala's.
Okay. What about it?
Yeah, so he holds to a more trans-exclusive view. Kamala holds to a more trans-inclusive view. I don't believe that trans women are women, so any standard that's set that kind of promotes or establishes or is more in line with that idea of accepting that trans men are men or trans women are women is something that I'm going to be at its face opposed to.
Okay. So is there anything Trump could do that would get you to stop supporting it?
Yeah,
Such as
starting, I don't know, like bringing back SLAVERY.
like bringing back slavery? Okay. Like if he was abused a woman, would you still support him?
Well, you're saying if he did. I do acknowledge the case of E. Jean Carroll, but I think that there's a cumulative case of reasons that provides a sort of utilitarian justification for still making it justified to vote for Trump.
Even though he's already because he simply denies trans identity?
Yeah. Well, although I'm against his character more than Kamala, I am very focused on consequences of current policy because, again, I am a consequentialist when it comes to my ethics. So,
Okay.
yeah,
What
that's...
policy did Kamala Harris support in relation to trans identity that would cause such negative impacts on society and consequences on society that would get you to then see in your util calculation that there are more consequences from a Democratic presidency?
Yeah, so one of those... So it's going to be a cumulative case. It won't just be one singular reason. The case is cumulative, and one of the cases in that basket is going to be the overall more trans-inclusive view that she does hold, and Trump's overall more trans-exclusive view. So I think that things like promoting truth, are intrinsically good. I think that Trump sort of having a more binary view of gender, not believing most likely that trans women are women. I think that these are going to be things at its value that I'm going to face because, I think that there's good arguments to prove that trans women are not women, and
Do you
vice
think
versa
that
for
Trump
men.
promotes truth to a greater extent?
With this specific topic, yes.
No, overall.
Oh, overall, no, but this is one of the reasons
Okay.
that count in favor of me voting for him. So
So wait, by the
truth.
way, so I asked you what was your justification for why denying trans identity gets you to like overlook him like raping a woman, and you said, "Oh, well, it's because I think promoting truth is inherently good." You now have acknowledged that Trump net promotes truth to a greater extent, or to a lesser extent. So if you
It's
agree with that,
wait, no.
well then if your whole basis for why you would say that you'd be willing to vote for the rapist is because he promotes truth, and he promotes
No, that's
truth to
not
a
the
lesser
reason. I
extent,
said it's
then
cumulative.
that couldn't be a reason as to why you support him. So
Nope,
what
I
other
said
reasons?
it's a cumulative
within the
case of
cumulative?
reasons. Sure, within the cumulative case of things that Trump does that overturns, the E. Jean Carroll stuff, that's going to be social topics like gender and AB, abortion, and it's going to be crypto and whatnot. But the one I want to start with, because I think I'm pretty strong at defending it, is his position on gender. That's the first one in the basket I want to, crack.
Okay, because we already went through that one. What about abortion?
Wait, what do you mean we went through that one? You have not defended the left's overall position of gender being trans-inclusive. We have not been over that.
Yeah, so you went over how you liked it because you thought it promoted truth and you think that's inherently good. And then you just conceded that Trump net promotes good at a lesser degree. So that whole argument you provided for why you think it's good to deny trans identity fell right on its ass.
No, because if I were to support Trump on the basis, if my supporting reason for Trump was on the basis that it's truth, he promotes truth, then yes, that argument wouldn't work because if you're talking about net utility,
No, in
he
relation
promotes
to that
more lies than
topic, dude.
truth.
In relation to that
I am
topic. So
saying-
the reason why I said we should move on from that topic and we talk about the other things you brought up, abortion and crypto, is because I already showed how specifically in relation to that particular topic, you've already undermined the basis for that argument, saying that Donald Trump is promoting truth at a lesser extent than Harris.
He is, but my reason is not just based off of truth for voting for Trump. It's a cumulative case
I
of
understand,
reasons, and
but
that basket.
your reason in relation to gender was because you think promoting truth is good, correct? Or what are the
It's
other
not the only
reasons
reason for
cumulative in
gender.
relation to gender?
It's also because of the trans spaces and sports and whatnot. But this is one of the reasons within the basket of supporting Trump.
Which
I
is
don't just support
relative
his
to you
position
denying
just 'cause-
trans identity, is it not?
No, there's also ethical reasons besides that. But
So
truth
like
is one of
you
the
don't
big
want
reasons.
men to go into women's spaces, for example.
It's not just that. It's
Okay.
more so the sports aspect. I think that he set a good standard for when it comes to sports.
Can I ask you a question
but
about
the
that?
truth, yeah.
Do you think that the federal government should restrict local sports organizations from allowing trans people to play?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I do.
So they should
So
be
yeah.
forcing local sports organizations to operate in specific ways.
Absolutely, yep. So Parker, now that I've told you that there's a basket of reasons as to why I support Trump, and gender is one of the things in this basket of reasons. Would you like to address one of the eggs in my basket, which is that Kamala supporting a position that promotes something to be either a less, yeah, I'm going to call it a less justified position than Trump's position on gender, which is it's more trans exclusive.
Okay, so let's go through and let's talk about this because I think I've already proven how like your whole other
Okay.
arguments around that surrounding that are ridiculous.
It
We can
just seems
go
like a
in.
red herring on your end, but okay.
Yeah, how so?
Because when I bring a gender, and then you start saying things like, "Oh yeah, but Trump is, a rapist and such a bad person," I don't want to say it's whataboutism, but it seems like instead of just addressing the debate right on its head and proving the less position, which is that, according to the left, there's such great, reasons to accept that trans women are women, it seems like you're just not really doing that. So.
You came on the live and you said that you were a single. You looked at the single issue, right? Originally, that's what you said, and you said that this is something that you take into consideration as a reason as to why you support Trump. And then I criticized that by saying, okay, well then you're overlooking all of these other things, and you think that this is a reason to overlook those things, and you think that's a red herring? No, that's directly addressing the original point you brought up of being a single issue voter, which you then changed, by the way, and said that there were multiple reasons.
Well, from the start, I didn't say that this was the only issue. I believe I said it's my strongest issue. But aside from that,
Maybe I
okay. So let
misheard
me
you.
try to put it.
But
So let me. Yeah,
I mean,
it
the
could
point
be.
is still relevant then, is that you specifically think that that would be a relevant reason to overlook all of the harms implicated by Trump. That's always a relevant thing to
No,
bring up.
because
And by the way,
rem,
I was still willing to engage directly with all those points. You just cut me off and didn't let me do so. I was still going to
okay, that's
directly address how I think that being trans
okay.
inclusive is better, and I think that trans people's gender identity is valid and like
Okay.
logical.
Okay, sure. So I guess we can start. Can you define what a woman is?
Yes, an adult human person that's committed towards the social and cultural norms typically associated with the female sex as a prescription of their gender identity. Can you define what a man is?
An adult human male. Give me 1 second. I want to
Are you
just
Christian?
briefly write down. You said nope.
You're
You
not?
said an
Okay.
adult. You said an adult human person. An adult human person who has some sort of commitment. What sort of
Who's
commitment?
committed towards the social and cultural norms typically associated with the female sex as a prescription of their gender identity.
Typically associated with the female sex. And then what was the last part?
As a prescription of their gender identity.
As a prescription of gender identity. Okay. So let me go ahead and ask you a couple questions about this.
Okay.
So an adult human person. So is being a adult human person, are those necessary conditions?
I don't believe in necessary and sufficient conditions. This is just a typical definition that I provide in order to clarify meaning.
Wait a minute. So being a okay, wait a minute. So being a person is not necessary?
Wait, I said I don't believe in necessary and sufficient conditions. Does that make necessary and sufficient? So there can be a necessary sufficient of being a person, but it's not necessary and sufficient. Does that make sense?
Okay. I think I understand what you mean. I'm just gonna interpret that the most gratuitous way possible. Okay, so let's say that we have an adult human person who, for example, let's say in past wars, when women wanted to participate in wars, some of them, I believe this is a fact, some of them would like dress or like sound and try to act like a man. In order to actually be able to participate in the war, because they used to say only men could enter. Do you think that while they were performing and aligning with these cultural norms typically associated with males, that they were now men?
But that wasn't as a prescription of their inner true self-identity.
How do we determine if something stems from a prescription of their gender identity?
And it's a description of their true internal identity. So how
Oh,
could we tell
true
is a different question from whether or not it meets the criteria.
Okay, so true internal identity. Okay, so this needs to be like, you're saying that this needs to be in line with how they truly feel inside with regards to these social and cultural norms, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so my first question is going to be, let's just say that we have a home or some sort of establishment that's full with disabled people. Let's say, unfortunately, these are some of the most disabled people of the country. There are people who maybe don't even have the notion of male or female. They don't know what a man or woman is. They unfortunately only hold to primitive sort of concepts such
Primitive is
as,
great.
I don't mean that in a rude sense, I mean that in a philosophical sense, but I'll try to use a different word that's more appropriate, let's just say. They hold to more unsophisticated sort of concepts. So with somebody who is in this scenario, and let's say that they're pregnant on top of that, and I say, hey, look at that person over there who's pregnant. She needs help with something. Or that woman who's pregnant over there, she needs help with something. Would that be correct under your view? Because let's say that they don't even have the concept of what it means to align or feel comfortable with a certain social norm. All they feel is like, I need to use the bathroom and I like, certain foods and etc.
I think that you can use definitions in different ways depending on the context. I think in that context, the way that you would typically be using the term is going to be in relation to one's biological state, not an understanding of gender identity. For example, like you could do the same thing for like an individual who's brain dead, right? Specifically, or if there's a situation where there's like an infant, right? You're still going to use like if they're biologically male or biologically female, you're going to use the pronouns associated with that. Obviously, unless there was going to be a determination of a factor that it would be different than that, if that makes sense. So that's just based upon typicalities and what you're understanding, not based upon like an active understanding of the social construct of gender. So you can use it in a biological sense or in a social sense, depending on the context. There's no issue.
So I might have two critiques right now. So, well, possibly three. So number one is that you acknowledge that when you're investigating the constitutive parts of what a woman is, right? You're trying to come up with the necessary and sufficient conditions, or you're trying to go with what you base off of, which seems to be
insufficient conditions.
Which is what I was just about to say. Which it seems like you're invoking a cluster concept, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
That you can use different definitions depending on context. Yeah.
Okay, which also means, you think that woman is polysemic, it seems like, but possibly, or, okay. So let's just address one point. So when you're doing you do acknowledge that what you're doing is a conceptual analysis, philosophically speaking, correct?
Sure.
Okay. And one of the criteria for success for a conceptual analysis is something known as extensional adequacy, which is trying to show that either the conditions that you give for a specific term is either too extended, meaning that it includes too many things in the set, or it's too narrow, meaning it excludes too many things in the set. So I believe that when in this hypothetical, when we point to the disabled person and we say, hey, look, that woman over there, it's showing that at least the conditions that you laid out, since they don't qualify as a woman under those conditions, it would show that it has a small flaw within the extensional adequacy of it.
No, I mean, I don't think that's a flaw. Like, I actually don't see a problem with it, but the definition that we use might change depending on the context, right? Like, for example, the term hot. We might use the term hot differently depending on the context. Some we might need temperature hot. Other scenarios we might mean hot, okay? Do you understand? Or we might mean attractive hot, okay? Those are all different senses of the term, right? Do you have a necessary and sufficient conditions for what you mean to be hot, or is that going to be different depending on the condition?
Yeah, that's a subjective term. That I don't know.
Do you agree it will be different, which term you use, which definition of the term hot you use, depending on the context?
Yes, that's a subjective term.
Is there a term hot that applies in all cases? No, there isn't.
No,
So you need to use different definitions to apply in all cases? Okay. Is that a problem?
I could show you how this is not analogous.
Explain.
Yeah. So the reason why is because of something known as semantic parsimony, which is that you're basically trying to say that there's several senses of the word woman, right? There's several senses of the word woman, and although your view cannot account for this specific hypothetical of how when people use the language woman, well, you're saying that there's other senses that can make up for it. So it's like, don't worry, although my definition cannot account for this data point within language, you're saying, okay, well, look, we could just hold to multiple senses of the word woman and that'll do. But under my worldview, I only have one sense of the word woman, which is adult human female, and that can account for all the data. So
I actually disagree. I can give you scenarios in which that doesn't apply. But like, hold up.
Is it going to be things like Superwoman, Wonder Woman?
Would that apply to you?
Well, no, I would say that in that case, so I have like two responses. Number one, I feel like that's just analogous to when we see, for example, a stone lion, like, at the front of a house, let's say they have a decoration like a stone lion, and we say, oh, look, it's a lion. Well, if you were to really press somebody on it and say, hey, is that actually a lion? They'd be like, well, no, it's just we're kind of personifying it, or we're using some sort of figurative.
You don't think Superwoman is actually a woman? You don't think Superman is actually a man?
I don't think they're literally a man. In the same way that a stone lion is not literally a lion.
I would think that Superman is literally a man.
In the same way that a stone lion is literally not a lion, no, I don't think that
Superman is literally a man, though. Like, I mean, what?
And is a stone lion literally a lion?
You wouldn't say a stone lion is literally a lion; it's a representation of a lion. But you would,
okay,
I think that we would agree that
Superman is a representation of a man.
But based on my understanding, I would agree that Superman is literally a man. You would have to argue that Superman is not literally a man under your view.
Yes, and in the same way that a stone lion is literally not a lion.
Okay, well, I don't think that those are comparable because I think that obviously in the way that I use the term man, obviously it's going to apply. There's really no issue with that. And even so, like we can have a standard that doesn't apply to human. But I mean, even so, based on our definitions, we both used human within our definition. You could find that as a criticism for
It,
either or, and also you can get yourself out of that either or
hmm
that actually isn't different under either argument. I was just curious to see how you'd respond to that. The point that I'm making
Yeah,
is that you
yes.
can use different senses of the term, and that's totally fine. There's no problem with that. In the same way that the temperature hot, right,
hmm
isn't going to apply in all scenarios. Like if I give you a scenario of you're someone referencing someone as hot in an attractive sense, okay,
hmm
that the temperature hot isn't going to apply in that case, but the attractive notion of hot will apply in that case. So just because I provided a case where the specific temperature notion of
hmm
hot doesn't apply, isn't a notion to say that the temperature notion of hot
hmm
is an incoherent use of the term or
I
doesn't have
understand that words can be
established meaning.
polysemic
Like it has
or
established
polar.
meaning, it is a coherent sense of the term, even though it doesn't apply in all cases. Depending on the context,
hmm
we might use a different notion of the term hot in order to be able to
Okay,
apply.
Parker, we agree words can have several meanings. Like the word theory has the layperson's notion of just being a hunch or a guess, and then academically it means a empirical based explanation, right? Okay, we're cool. But here's one of my contentions. You would agree that simplicity is a virtue in philosophy, right?
Sure.
Okay, cool. Now, if I have one definition, right, and it's just adult human female, and I'm saying that it could account for all the same data, right? It could account for all of the senses that we use the word woman. I
I
would argue
disagree.
that,
I disagree. For example,
okay,
can I,
then
can
give
I
me
give
a
you an
sense.
example? Have you ever watched Black Mirror?
Sure, I have not, honestly.
You have not. Okay. So let's suppose that your brain is sent into a simulation. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And in the simulation, there's no biology within the simulation. It's a virtual simulation. Okay. And in that simulation,
Mm-hmm.
right, your body on the other side, right, in this world is dead. Okay. This is after you die. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
In the context of the world, you look the same. You're the exact same. Everything about you is the exact same. Would it be reasonable
Wait,
for me to refer to
wait,
you as a
everything
man?
looks the same? Wait, you're saying I don't have a body, but everything looks the same?
Sorry, you don't have a physical body. You have a virtual body. It looks the same. It's virtual.
Okay, so I have a virtual body.
Yes,
Okay, and
but it's
this
not like a
body. Well,
physical
if
body.
I'm kind of lost there because you're saying how is it going to look the same, but it's not Is it just a hologram?
Okay, so it is
Well,
literally in the context of a virtual. Have you watched what Rick and Morty?
I unfortunately I don't watch TV. I'm not trying to be bad faith. I just don't watch shows or
That's okay.
TV.
I know
But
you're
I'm
not trying
trying
to
to
be
abide
bad
by
faith.
your
I was just
hypothetical.
asking to see if I have an explanation. Have you watched Jumanji?
I have not watched like any shows or movies. It's going to be a bad route
Freaky
to go.
Friday.
I am telling you, I have not watched any of this stuff. I'm just
Fuck,
just tell me
dude.
the hypothetical. Is your body like a hologram? Is that what you're saying?
Okay, how about this? We take your consciousness, we put you in the
Mm-hmm.
brain of someone who's biologically female. Would it still
Mm-hmm.
make sense to refer to you as Jacob and a
It
man?
would make sense to call me Jacob, but I would no longer be a man in my worldview. I think that I would now, I would say, oh no, I have become a female. What has happened to me?
So
That's
would it not
probably
make sense
what
to
would
say
be my
that he
explanation.
is trapped in a woman's body, or he is trapped in a biological
Yeah,
female's
that
body?
he,
Like you, for
yeah, that
example.
he is trapped in a woman's body is fine. I
Okay,
think.
so
Yeah,
he. What is that in
yeah.
reference to?
I think
He is
that's
in
in
reference
reference
to
to
biological characteristics under your view, right?
Jacob's
If he is in, let
preferred
me please
pronouns.
finish. Let me please finish. If he is in reference to biological characteristics, they are biologically female. Biologically female. What is the he in reference to?
I don't think he is only in reference to sort of characteristics that are male or female. For example, we refer to a god. We will say like God, like maybe we'll refer to God with he, him pronouns, even though God is a foundational spirit who
You're
does
just
not
giving an
possess.
example of how gender is sociological and not always based in biology. Thank you. Can you
But
tell me
wait,
what
this is just
pronouns are?
pronouns. Gosh, English is my third language. I believe it's just. I mean, I guess I could explain it via example, like he, him, she, or her. I can't probably like reduce like how, what it means grammatically. It's
Can you
probably
at least
gonna be
agree
tough,
that it's
but
in reference to one's gender identity?
um, I could say yeah, I think I can agree to that, and I could still be fine on my position. I mean, I
Okay.
could I could say it's worth refer to, yeah,
Okay, if
like
it's in
if
reference
you
to one's gender
how you
identity,
align with
you
masculinity or femininity.
yeah, if it's in reference to one's gender identity, and in this case, you think the gender identity is defined solely by biology, then I think that you would have to agree that you cannot use the word he because they're biologically female. You said it
Wait,
was
I
in
never
reference to their
said.
gender identity. You think gender identity is biological. They have no biological traits that would be
I didn't
associated with
say.
the male
Wait, I
sex.
didn't say gender identity is biological. I said that gender is biological, but gender identity I did not say is biological. That's
Okay.
merely because because I think that maybe your gender identity can just be something like, okay, like I'm generally like a masculine person, meaning that I possess many traits that are typically associated with the male, and that's why I prefer to be addressed with like he, him pronouns. But I can acknowledge that my gender, which is a man, right? A man is the gender. I'm just saying that the best analysis of what a man is adult human male. I don't know if you want to stick on this. I have another critique to your
So you
definition of
think
woman.
gender and gender identity can be two separate things?
Yeah, I'm fine with saying that.
Like you can have the gender identity of being a woman, but then have the gender of being a man.
No, I don't think that I don't think that you could have the gender identity of being a woman. I think that you could have like the gender identity of being feminine, more so.
Yeah,
So
but you
yeah,
don't
that
you don't use that to just refer to feminine or masculine characteristics. You use it to refer to one's gender, right? How about this? Can you agree that pronouns are in reference to one's gender?
no, I don't want to say always. It always is. No.
I think that's typically how we use the term. Is that
Wait a
pronouns
minute.
are in
Just because
reference
it's
to one's
typically
gender?
how wait. Just because it's typically how we use a term, that doesn't mean automatically that we have to hold to those semantics. You would agree that most people, when they define what a female is, most people are going to say XX chromosomes and other. Correct.
Wait, no, you have to understand that that's not the criticism that I was providing to you. I was saying most people who use this term specifically use it in this way, and you're just using it in a different way. I was just saying that. I'm not saying that's a criticism of it.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, I'm fine with if I hold to like an idiosyncratic notion of gender identity. I probably do. I just okay.
I just don't know why it would apply to gender identity and not gender, like for pronouns. I think pronouns are in reference to gender. And also, like, this whole notion of gender identity and gender being different is like really weird in the first place.
I brought up the God scenario, how we don't, I don't think that pronouns are something that strictly has to be tied to that. I think that that runs into issues. Okay, now, can I provide that second critique that I did have to your definition?
How about this? Would you then be okay with saying a man is stuck in a woman's body?
A man is stuck in a woman's body? I would say no. I would say the person who was priorly a man, Jacob, who used to be a man. You can't call him a man right now. I think that would yeah, that would be a contradiction, because you would just be saying that the brain is in the woman's body, and I can't be committed to saying that a brain alone is a man.
It's a contradiction under your term, and not a contradiction under mine.
Correct. That's why I cannot technically hold that. I'd have to say that the metaphysical person was priorly a man. I literally just like
put your consciousness in a different person's body. You say it would be incoherent. Yep. You say the man is now stuck in the woman's body.
The man, yes, because the brain of it is.
I don't think that's incoherent. I don't think that's incoherent at all. But under your view, you have to say it's incoherent to say that the man is stuck in the woman's body.
Because then you would be saying that's analogous to saying that the brain is in the woman's body, and I cannot say that a brain is a man, because under my view, a man is an adult human male. So I cannot be committed to that, because that would be a P and not P on my view.
It's the person. It's the person that has that gender identity, and that person is built in their subjective experience, their consciousness, right? That's what we're referencing, okay? And we're saying that that's not solely tied to biology. So the understanding that we're providing here is that the mind, right, is the basis for gender, at least from my perspective.
I know that's what you're saying. I understand. And I do have a second critique to your definition that's going to try to, give us a reason to avoid that. Let's see if I remember now, unfortunately. Okay, so...
But, like, do you think my definition is incoherent?
No, it's not incoherent technically, but I feel like, again, I'm going to be critiquing it on the basis that it might lead to counterintuitive conclusions. Okay, so here's another question I have.
I disagree. I don't think anything about my view leads to counterintuitive conclusions, especially because I can use a different definition depending on the circumstance. There's no problem with that.
You can, but remember, if my definition, which is just adult human female, and let's say you have, let's just give it a reductio.
I think that inevitably we just reduced your view down to an unintuitive conclusion, because I do think that it would make sense to say a man is stuck in a woman's body.
Okay, that's you, and I don't have those, so we might just end up reaching a point of disagreement in which I don't think that everything that I'm committed to is counterintuitive, and there might be hypotheticals that I give you that you say this is not counterintuitive, but that would just be a point of rational disagreement.
How is this something you care about as a relation to like who you're voting for president? If it's solely predicated off of just, we just decided to define these things differently. It's not based upon like someone being incoherent. Because earlier you tried to say like promoting the truth is inherently good. My view isn't like not promoting the truth. I'm still promoting the truth.
Okay,
think of the galaxy.
Sure, I understand what you're saying. Let me respond to that. So what would distinct this conversation from a typical conversation is that there are some things that are completely unacceptable philosophically speaking within the debate of what is a woman. For example, one of the criteria for success within a proper conceptual analysis is going to be illumination. So if you're giving an analysis of a term, you need to be able to illuminate what that term means. This is seen by philosopher Carnap, who did big progress within this field. And so, for example, the definition cannot be circular. Many, one second, I'm just about to wrap up. Many definitions that people on the left will give for what a woman is unfortunately circular. They might say somebody who aligns with being a woman, or somebody who meets the characteristics of, whatever, and then they'll end up including the word woman, or they'll say that somebody who's female is somebody who feels like a female. So again, many people on the left do struggle with that issue. That's just one of the issues. Yeah, what did you want to say?
Okay, so like the point that I was bringing up that I wanted to get us back on topic is that like you don't think that there's a logical issue with my position. The disagreement.
There could be. I have another critique.
Then what's the logical issue?
Yeah. So, okay. Well, wait a minute. Logical issue. I actually might want to phrase that as a philosophical issue, because logic is very specific within philosophy. Usually logic refers to the structural validity.
When you just say philosophical issue, all you mean is you just don't think it's intuitive. That's all you mean.
No, that's not just what I mean, because it might even be the case. Okay, sure. So it might be the case that it struggles with illumination, for example, which if it struggles with illumination, that means that at some point within, whether you're defining female or whether you're defining woman or whether you're defining anything that you need to define, if that ever runs into an issue of parasitic circularity, well, then that would be another sort of issue that I could object to.
Term.
So it's not just...
Every term inevitably leads that. Okay, that's so dishonest for you to act like that's only applicable to this. Let me ask you a question. Wait a minute. The necessary and sufficient conditions for a chair?
I'm going to answer that, but first, can I address your prior point?
No.
Okay, that's fine, whatever. Yeah, chair is most likely best categorized by family resemblance. So it's going to be a cluster concept. It's just going to be having a set of overlapping trait stats matching with the exemplar of that category.
Okay, so do you realize how you just acknowledge that that's completely okay? There's no issue with that?
Yeah,
no
I'm not saying I have an issue with cluster
Is there a
concepts.
Philosophical issue with the way that you just defined the chair?
No, but there is a point of contention whether woman is a cluster concept or not. That's the whole point of the debate. We're trying to see if a cluster
what
concept
is the philosophical problem with the notion of woman being a cluster concept?
Sure. Do you want to hear one of them? That's potentially going to be an issue?
Go ahead.
Okay, let's see if you can address it. Okay, so when you're saying it's an adult person who has a commitment to social and cultural norms, okay, and whatever the rest of it was. Now, let's say me, for example, I have a commitment towards certain activities that are typically associated with females within my society. So, for example, let's say I have a huge commitment to cooking. Let's say that I like wearing heels, for example. Let's say that...
Is that as a prescription of your gender identity? So the desire to be in accordance with those characteristics is a prescription of your gender identity?
What you mean by prescription of my gender identity is that...
So, like, you think when you're cooking that you are committed to the idea of being a woman? Is that, like, for example...
No, maybe that I'm committed to a certain feminine side of me. Does that not count?
But that wouldn't be as a prescription of your gender identity.
Okay, wait a minute. So in order for it to be a prescription of your gender identity...
So do you understand the distinctions between gender expression and identity?
I think so. Are you saying that you need to be thinking this is what affirms me being a woman while you do the activity?
It's not necessarily a specific concept or a specific idea that has to be thought about every single time you do it, but it's the fact that you engaging with these concepts is a prescription of your gender. Yeah, so like for example, when I engage in certain masculine characteristics, that's a prescription of my gender identity, right? Specifically, when I engage with those masculine characteristics, because I want to be in alignment with that particular gender role.
What doesn't make sense here is that I'll show you where I'm caught up right here. Prescription to me seems, at least philosophically speaking, it seems like it's agent dependent. Right, it seems like normative, or it seems agent dependent. The point is that it seems like there needs to be a conscious mind that's giving the prescription of your gender.
Be the individual person themselves.
Okay, so the individual person themselves. Okay, so you're saying that the individual person themselves is prescribing
based upon their own commitments to be in accordance with these characteristics.
Okay, let's just say, what if we have somebody in a society who like lives, let's just say, very secluded. And
I'm sorry, you're not going to find a philosophical or logical problem with this, but you can keep trying.
Sure, let's see. So let's just say
we have somebody secluded who set this up is because it has no philosophical or logical problem.
We will see. So when you're saying that I have the commitment of when I'm cooking or wearing high heels, doing all these things, you're saying that doesn't count as me aligning with this specific commitment to social and cultural norms because it's not a prescription of my gender identity, meaning I'm not saying, oh, I'm a woman and these are things that are affirming my womanhood.
I would
Something
actually
along those
argue that
lines.
you don't even have a commitment to be in accordance with those. You're just expressing those characteristics.
And okay, establish one more time. How do we determine if it's an actual commitment based off of your prescription of your gender identity? How do we establish that?
Yeah, all of these terms end up relying back into each other. It's that you're desiring to be in accordance with these characteristics as a prescription of one's gender identity.
Yeah, but how do we establish that? Okay, how do we adjudicate that me wanting to do
That's
things like
totally
cooking
separate.
and wearing heels?
Totally separate
Okay,
process.
I'm
of
asking how do we
personally
adjudicate this
adjudicate for other
logically?
people, or whether or not it meets the criteria of the definition.
How do you adjudicate when looking at when assessing a certain situation? For example, me
How do I
doing an
typically
activity like
adjudicate the
cooking.
gender of individuals? Right, either by
No, that's not
presentation
my
or how
question.
they
If you let me
they
finish,
present
if you let
themselves,
me
or
finish,
how
you'll
they
understand the
say what
question.
their identity represents.
No, my question, just let me finish it, is how do you adjudicate between somebody doing an action and the action being a prescription of their gender identity versus a person doing an action that's merely typically associated with femininity?
I mean, typically that would be intuitive dependent for individuals. Like, for example, like we would see the intuitive distinction specifically in terms of someone expressing those characteristics. Say, for example, if they're doing a film or they're an actor, obviously the pretenses to that are not intentional, that it's representative of their true self or identity, but rather a character they're portraying. For
But
example, like
if I think that
those
I
sort of
have
context clues can see whether or not it's specifically reflective of their true self identity or reflective of something else they're trying to gain from the scenario. Like when you're an actor, you're trying to portray a character. You're not trying to portray your own internal true sense of identity.
But cooking really is a feminine internal sense of self that I have.
But you're not. But when you engage in that action, it's not as a prescription of your gender identity. Okay.
Why not?
Right, because you're not prescribed to be in alignment with it. You're a man, right?
I'm
You're
not
a woman,
prescribed
right?
to be in alignment with it. Wait a minute. Wait a
Yeah,
minute.
are you a
Because
man?
I am not prescribed to be in alignment with it. Prescribed by who? That doesn't
Yourself.
make sense. Okay, so it's because I don't
Yeah,
prescribe that cooking
do
is
you in
something
a
that men
true
do.
sense think you should be defined as a man?
Well, wait a minute. Well, this is just circular. If this is what it boils down
No,
to,
it's
if
not.
I think that I should be
This is-
defined as a man,
So
a
do you
man is somebody who.
Do you realize how I have made it clear, and I've already used definitions, and I'm simply just trying to make it easier for you to understand at this point? Because you are purposefully misunderstanding what I'm saying to try to find a logical error with it?
I'm honestly not. I think that this
You
is
honestly
honestly from
are
what
at
I've
this
seen,
point.
it seems somewhat unintelligible when we have
It is
boiled
totally
down to what it
intelligible.
means.
I've explained it to you over how much time have we spent doing this topic? I have now
Okay.
dedicated how much time? 35 minutes of my time on this live stream to explaining this to you. Are you serious? You're going to waste 35 minutes of my time and then you're going to act like what
I
I
don't know
just
why
said
you're
didn't make any
you're
sense?
crashing out.
I'm not
do you think
crashing
that
out.
anybody?
How am
do
I
you-
crashing out for saying that you're wasting my time?
It's not wasting time because I'm providing critiques to
No,
your
answer the question.
worldview, and this is
How
the
am
whole
I
point of the debate.
crashing out for saying you're wasting my time?
Okay, because you have provided what at least seems to be, because prescription, the way that I understand it, seems like it's being misused here.
How am I crashing out because I simply just said that you're wasting my time?
Because you were getting aggressive with your tone when all I'm doing is giving you objections to your cluster concept.
I was simply just saying you're wasting my time and expressing that, and that's
But
not
the tone
crashing
of
out.
it was, you were obviously getting angry for some reason.
I don't
Okay,
think I
can we just
seemed
spend 5 more
angry.
minutes trying to get clear what the hell a prescription of your gender identity means? Because as of now, that sense has not been illuminated in the slightest. So when something's a prescription of your gender identity, how do we establish if something is a prescription of your gender identity versus it's something that you just happen to be doing that happens to be feminine? For example, me happening to like wear heels, for example.
It would rely upon intentions of the individuals in terms of their own identity.
I intentionally wear heels because there are some days where I say, maybe this I don't want to say expresses a feminine side of me, but I'll say that I recognize that I have certain manly characteristics and certain feminine characteristics. And this is a way that I express myself that makes me feel comfortable. Is that a prescription of my gender identity?
No, that's not a prescription of your gender identity. It's just a prescription of what makes you feel comfortable.
Okay. So what's necessary for it to
Like,
be a
these
prescription of my
characteristics
gender
of
identity?
yourself are the basis for determining your own understanding of your identity in terms of gender. Like when you think of gender from a social sense, what do you think of?
I really don't want to shift and move on to something separate before I understand
This
what
isn't
this
we're moving on to
prescription
something
means.
separate. This is relative to getting you to understand what I'm saying.
Okay, what's your question?
Like when you think about the term, right? When you think about gender and whatnot outside of a biological sense, what do you think of? You just think of expression
Traits typically associated or modeled after the male or female.
Just the traits? I mean, you don't, like, for example, you don't have like an internal perception from your own understanding of what it means to be a man from your own understanding.
That seems to be a trait, but you know, we don't have to call it a trait. You could just I call it a characteristic about yourself. That's fine.
So you have this own internal perception and identity. So
Internal
for example,
perception
like
of
if it's
identity, what it means to be a
reflective of
man.
your own internal self-perception, your true internal self-perception of your identity. That's the note.
But okay, now what doesn't make any sense about that is because I think that what gets me category membership into being a man is merely the fact that I am an adult
You want to be in
who's also a
alignment with
human.
that gender category when you are engaging in the expression of those characteristics. Not just the expression, it's that you have, and this could be a subconscious thing. It's not necessarily a conscious thing that you're always aware of in every scenario. It's a subconscious thing in some scenarios. It's between conscious and subconscious. Does it make sense?
I don't want to be aligned with it. I think that I am forcefully aligned with it no matter what I do because I'm always going to be an adult human male.
Okay, I think you do want to be aligned with it. If you don't want to be
I don't
aligned with
understand what it would mean to want to be. Okay, that would be like me saying.
I think you do understand that. I just think you're being ridiculous. You do understand what it means
Okay.
to want to be a man. Like, you're being ridiculous.
To want to be. Okay, if you're saying like, do I prefer being like born a male? Is that what it means? I mean.
Right now, as we sit down right now, do you want to be a man?
Yeah, I think that being a male has advantages,
Okay,
you know,
well-
economically and whatnot.
No. I'm saying, like, representative of your own identity, not because you see it has, like, sort of outcomes in society, as representative of who you are. Say outcomes are equal. Would you still want to be a man?
Well, men typically like things like fishing, so I guess so. Yeah, I like fishing. Cool.
Okay. So you have this own internal
Okay.
perception of what... Now, your internal perception of it is really just based on fishing, apparently. But you have
Okay,
some
so-
at least some basic understanding of what it means to be
Okay.
a man and want to be a man. So you at least
okay.
acknowledge that you have that internal perception. That specifically when
Okay.
you engage in certain characteristics, that you have this inner want to be a man. Like when you engage with
Okay.
feminine characteristics.
I think I see what you mean.
Right, feminine expression.
I think I see what you
do
mean.
you have that same want?
With wanting to be
like-
a woman?
Yeah, like or wanting to be in alignment with the category associated with those expressions.
Well, wait a minute. Yeah, so I think I understand what you mean now. Are you okay? And to answer your question, yes, I do want to do some things that are considered womanly, if that's what you're asking.
But when you do them, do you want to be in alignment with the category associated with those expressions?
Essentially, what you're asking is, do I want to be a woman?
Do you want to be associated with the category associated with those expressions?
The category which is associated with those actions would be woman or female.
Okay.
Okay, so what you're asking me there is, when I'm doing an activity like cooking, do I want to be considered a woman or female? The answer would be no.
Do you want to be in
but
alignment with the social category associated with the female?
with the social category associated with the female, which is woman, right?
Okay.
Okay, yes, I wait, I do not. I do not want to be in alignment with being a woman when I'm cooking. But now what I don't understand about this view about gender is if it's a necessary condition to be wanting to feel aligned with essentially what you're saying is be aligned with a woman while you do womanly activities. This does seem like I don't understand how this is not circular.
No, you're just trying to find a way to try to represent it as circular. You realize that
Well-
you're
well, with
going
all
into
the-
this like, oh, liberals are always circular with their definitions, so I'm going to try to find circularity within the definition.
Can I try to explain to you how it's circular? Can I get a minute to try to explain how?
You've already had plenty of minutes to do so. Yes, you can keep doing that.
Okay, sure. So you said to be a woman is to be an adult human person who has a commitment, social norms, typically associated with the feminine, female sex as a prescription of their gender identity. And then we went on, well, how do we determine if something is actually a prescription of your gender identity? And then you said, okay, well, when you're doing these activities, and you have a concept of the category that's typically associated with these traits, are you in line with that category? Now, when you're saying the category aligned with these traits, which is traits like, for example, let's just say, fishing, wanting to be a protector, wanting to be, masculine, I would say that the social category that's associated with that is the category of man. So you could just replace all of that with, do you feel like a man when you're doing these manly activities, or do you feel like a woman when you're doing these womanly activities?
I think you're oversimplifying my definition to try to make it seem circular.
I don't understand. When you say, do you align with that category that's typically associated with these traits? I don't understand what that category would be.
Yeah, so that was a separate question, not relevant specifically just to the understanding of the definition, right? I was just getting that to understand that you have a self-perception of gender.
Okay, so now you have, so this is just to all kind of talk about the if the way that you're defining a self-perception, you have to invoke the word woman, and perception is within your definition of woman. I mean, that may seem like it's lacking on illumination, because if somebody, let's say somebody doesn't know what a woman is to begin with, right? And they're asking you, hey Parker, what is a woman? You give them this long ass definition, and then you have to talk about the prescription of a gender identity, and then they start talking about the prescription of a gender identity, and then you have to eventually boil down to talking about this category of woman. If you have to re-invoke the term woman, they're going to be kind of confused down the line of that.
I think most people, when I explain this definition to them, aren't confused. I think most people tell me that this is one of the best ways they've ever heard it explained in reference specifically to the way that they understand the topic. I think that you're the only one that's purposefully having an issue with this. Now, if you don't understand the way that I'm using the term, that's completely fine. That doesn't mean that it has no basis for or useful utility in explaining what I mean to other people. Okay, just because you don't understand it doesn't mean others don't. Okay, so like you're just saying that you don't find utility out of it because you're not understanding it. But I actually think that's because you're trying not to understand it, regardless of whether or not you are going to admit that or not.
I really am engaging in good faith, and I did bring up the point about simplicity.
I think everything that I've said makes sense.
Okay, I guarantee that you would not be able to bring up a friend of yours from the comments and have them explain what you explained. I almost guarantee it, with all the respect. But
okay, do you think that I'd be able to bring up a Trump supporter from the live that would accurately be able to describe your argument?
Oh, all of them.
Do you think every single Trump supporter would accurately be able to describe your argument? I think you're being dishonest.
I was joking, but
okay. So like, I don't think that's actually like a good argument that you've got there. And plus, like, I just want to be clear, right? Like, people can understand what I'm saying, and then also not be able to describe it on a live stream in front of thousands of people.
That is true. You know, that is a what's that called? A Socratic, fallacy. You may understand the concept of something, but not be able to explain. But I think that my definition that I provided, which is just an adult human male. Oh, and by the way, I have one more argument for that, and it'll be really brief. It won't be this long line of tangent.
Can I just explain something to you as well? Like, you're going hyper debate bro mode. Do you think most people use hyper debate bro mode when trying to define terms, or do you think that we understand it more from a simplistic standpoint and a colloquial sense of these terms?
I'll put it this way:
it's
the
more
last Trump supporter that I talked to,
right? It's not so
the last Trump supporter,
right there.
The last Trump supporter that I talked to, when I asked him about how he defines error theory, he was talking about how the semantic and ontological thesis of moral anti-realism is more theoretically virtuous than moral realism. So I think that people typically take it my route, honestly. But yeah, anyways, I do have one more point to make about...
That was just a nonsense argument, by the way.
No, that really happened, trust me.
Wait, I'm sorry. Let me give you said that anti-realism is more virtuous because of what reason?
Theoretically virtuous. They're usually more ontologically parsimonious. That I was just trolling with that answer.
How is anti-realism more theological? Sorry, I can't speak.
Ontologically?
Theoretically virtuous.
Theoretically virtuous? Yeah, because it usually scores more highly on theoretical virtues such as simplicity. So usually, like views like robust realism, they'll talk about these like non-natural entities.
How is anti-realism more simplistic than realism?
Yeah. So, for example, an error theorist
each relies on a premise.
No, they may hold to the same semantic thesis. For example, and by the way, this is all based off of a troll answer, so we're going into the weeds here. But so, for example, error theory,
it wasn't a serious statement.
The statement was true, but it just wasn't related to what we were talking about. Because you were asking me, do people genuinely define things this way? And I was like, oh yeah, Trump supporters give all these sophisticated responses all the time. But I mean, if you want an answer to my last thing,
you were just saying that as a joke.
I was. I thought you would pick up on it, but I don't know if you took it seriously. But
yeah, I
just want to give you my...
I'm sorry, I literally just didn't know that you were joking.
Okay, no, that's fine. That's fine. I just want to give some closings here, if that's okay. Okay, so I just want to say that for the adult human female view of woman, there are. Go ahead if you want to say something. I don't care.
Yeah, like if you ask a typical person what the definition of a chair is, they wouldn't be able to define it in like a Philbrough sense for you. Does that mean they don't know what a chair is?
No, they know what it is. I never denied that. I accept that cluster concepts exist, that we could use them, that people can't define things clearly. All I'm doing is trying to show all the sort of like virtues of my view and all the potential flaws in your view, which I don't want to rehash that I think that your view might be circular.
I'm sorry, but I inevitably, my view obviously isn't circular because obviously if you acknowledge that I have multiple different definitions, it's not circular from that standpoint, or at least
that doesn't logically follow.
You're trying to say like contradictory, like there's like an example it doesn't provide to, or were you trying to Wait, so sorry, wait, go back to what you're saying.
Yeah, I was
So wait,
about the
circularity. You're
closing or
trying to
about the
argue that I'm
circularity.
using the same word within the definition. So can you tell me where
Within
within the
the word,
definition I provided is the exact same word as the definition?
no, that's not my claim. I'm not saying that you used it
That's what
explicitly within the
circular means.
definition. I'm saying that within one of the concepts of your definition, which is a prescription of gender identity, it seems like you may have had to invoke what a woman is within the whole prescription of a gender identity to
So
illuminate that.
so here's your issue. Your argument then is that this definition inherently, if you keep asking for different ways of referring to the term, that you're going to find some circularity, is applicable to every single word. That's applicable to every word.
No, technically not.
I think it is.
Have you,
And I
yeah, it's
actually
not.
I've yet to hear a
One reason
single
why it's not.
I've yet to
Sure,
hear a single way
I'll
that you
give you an
could define a
example.
term. If we go through this, and it's going to take us a long time to go through it,
We don't have to. I have a really brief, really quick way to show that not all words are going to be circular. You have things that are just radically primitive. For
inevitably it's going to
example,
regress. You have to acknowledge that there's infinite regress.
or there's radical primitives, which is just something that can, you might just say that there is no analysis of the term that could be provided. For example, Timothy Williamson, when he was giving an analysis of what knowledge.
So then your whole criticism of mine is that I had a brute without an explanation.
No, you didn't use
right?
no, you did not use a primitive in your definition. No, you didn't.
So
all
what
I'm
is it?
all I'm
When you
combating
say
right now.
primitive, do you
All
mean
I'm
do you just
combating.
mean a basis of the definition that doesn't have some sort of other word to refer to it?
No, that's not my critique either. All I'm responding to right now is that you said that every word is going to have this like infinite regress of having to define things like interdefinitionally, or however you say that word.
Like I
I'm
think
saying that there are words that.
inevitably every single definition will lead to infinite regress. Yeah.
Okay, well, if you're saying every definition,
Inevitably, if
then
you keep
I would
asking
say
how to define the term or provide different words for that word,
okay,
you're
but not
inevitably
okay.
going to have to posit like an end to that.
Let me explain. Not every analysis of a term is going to have an infinite regress. Do you agree with that?
Not every analysis of a term is going to have an infinite. What can you clarify what you mean by analysis?
Sure, sure. By analysis, meaning when trying to establish like what a word essentially means.
When I do think that when you're trying to establish what a word essentially means, it's inevitably going to hit that infinite regress. I mean, if you'd
No,
like to
no, because
provide me
think
examples
about it.
outside of that, I'd love to
Okay,
see.
sure. Let me just give you a quick one, and then I do really want to, because I do actually have to go to bed soon. But let me just give you that example, and then my closings. Okay,
I
so
can't believe we
for
wasted
example,
all of our time on that.
okay, so Timothy Williamson, for example, I believe his name is, when he gives an analysis of what knowledge is, he says that it's like a merely a primitive term. It's called like knowledge first epistemology. He doesn't say knowledge equals justified true belief, or it's not justified true belief plus a defeasibility condition. He says that knowledge is just the first sort of word that we have to work from, and then we stem other things like beliefs from that first word. So knowledge, you could kind of like only explain it ostensively. Like you could say, oh, here's a bunch of examples of how we use knowledge. Here's a bunch of, like, but he can't actually like provide a further reduction of the term. So in that case, you're kind of providing an analysis, but you're not like doing an infinite regress of. So does that make sense what I'm trying to convey?
Okay, so and that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that inevitably all of these words will inevitably hit a point where you cannot further reduce it.
Okay, I don't understand. I don't think we're getting each other on that point. So can I just move on to my sort of closing points here, if that's
If you'd
okay?
like to, sure.
Okay, sure. So I just want to say that just a couple last points to note about adult human female is that there are actually a lot of trans-inclusive philosophers that do agree with a definition for like woman having to include females. Some examples of this would be like, I believe Simone de Beauvoir said that, a woman is somebody who has has to have a necessary sort of physiology. And I think also Mary Makota, you can check like the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, says that women are human females and men are human males. So there are some trans-inclusive philosophers who even agree. And I mean, also all the dictionaries, most, if not all dictionaries agree with the definition of my term. And dictionaries, I think, are supposed to track common usage. So that's some evidence for it. And then the last thing I wanted to say is kind of about species. When you look at different like other animals, and those other animals reach a certain age, like the bucks and the does and the bulls and hens, like it seems like animals have this one word for when a certain species reaches a certain maturity level or age. So it kind of makes sense that humans would also have that term, because if adult human female, is not represented by woman, the label woman, then like what is the word that represents what adult human females are? So yeah.
you can have it as a reference to that, and then also have it as a reference that's more complicated than that. So, like, in the same way that you're saying, like, okay, we have all these species classifications that operate this way. Well, I think that humans are a little bit more complex than typical animals that exist within species. Like, gender is something that we can engage with that I don't think that other types of species have the same sort of engagement with as we do. So I think that's typically the way that you're going to have an issue with referring to it.
Okay, I understand that point, and I might agree with at least half of it. Can I just ask one last thing before I go? Do you think that you holding to several senses is going to lead to more equivocations within the word woman? Like you could be using the word, and then you'll be like, "Oh, sorry, I didn't actually mean that sense of the word, since I hold to like 3 different senses. I actually mean this sense of the word." Versus in my worldview, there would never be such equivocations going on.
I don't think that would ever happen. Has never happened for the usage of the term for me.
What?
And then even so, like we have to do that with the term hot all the time. Yet we don't think that like that's an issue. And also, I don't think
Okay,
that
well,
you get around all this because I think inevitably our positions just reduce down to like, oh, you think that your definition is more intuitive based upon the way that you use the term, and I think my definition is more intuitive based on the way that I like using the term. That's inevitably what it's
okay.
going to reduce down to.
Well, I disagree with your last point that there wouldn't be more equivocations, but we'll have to talk about that some other
Okay.
time. Okay.
But like again,
Sounds good.
you have no issue with that with the term hot, right?
With the word hot, yeah, I don't think there's an issue with the word hot because usually
Like by hot,
when
do you mean or do you mean temperature? Like I have to
well,
clarify that.
usually
Like,
based off the
like I
context,
feel
we
like
could tell.
I feel like I can remember many times in my life where I've had to clarify that, and I don't think that makes the term hot any less useful.
Sure, I guess let me just give you one last quote unquote counter argument to that. If I'm touching something metal and I say, "Oh, that's hot," there's many cues that I'm speaking about the temperature, the fact that I flinched and I reacted, and the fact that I'm touching metal. Obviously, I'm not speaking of the hot, and obviously, I'm not using the term attractive hot, right? So you could tell based off the context clues of that sentence which sense of the word hot I mean.
Exactly.
But with the
And I
word
think
woman, with the
that with
word
the term
woman, you
woman, you
might
can
not be
also
able
do the
to.
same.
But what if you say to police officer,
Yeah,
it
but
was a
also
woman
the
who went
same
down
thing
the
might be
street?
true with the term hot. You might not, based upon the situation, be able to tell based on the context clues. So you ask someone for further clarification. Totally fine, no issue
But I
with
think
that.
there's more scenarios with the word woman in which that's going to be vague. For example, you say, officer, the woman went that
No,
way, or the man went that way. The man went that way. I
no,
think
I
that,
actually
he'd, oh, which
don't. I
sense are you
actually don't.
speaking of?
I have never in my life had to do that, but yet I have had to do that with the term hot.
Okay, well, yeah, I think I don't agree with your last point, but
Sure, like
I don't have enough time to discuss it, Parker.
the
We'll
only
have to
time
discuss it
I
next
could
time.
think of that is like if I'm referring to a trans woman as a woman or a trans man as a man, and someone who disagrees with my notion of the term then questions that after, but I wouldn't even see that to be like a relevant thing.
Okay, well, Parker, you admitted there is at least one scenario in which you look at the extremely disabled person, you say, hey, that's a woman over there. They need to clarify which sense of the word you mean, because obviously they don't qualify under some
I don't think
definition,
that
but
they
they do
even need to
qualify under
clarify. I
others.
think that we would understand typically how someone's using it in that context, based upon
Wait,
context
how?
clues.
Wait a minute. Okay, how
Based
would I
upon
know if you're using the identitarian commitment or whatever you said versus if I'm using adult human female when I say the woman over there needs help in her wheelchair?
Yeah, I think typically people are not going to understand that in like for example, like if you like again, like this is the same notion with like the pronouns and she. Like we'll say this about like infants. Infants technically don't have a description of these particular commitments, right? Or they don't have any of these commitments. They don't have understandings of gender. That doesn't come about until around the age of 4 or so. But we still might use like gendered terms to refer to them, right? Because of typicalities,
Like a
right? And
girl or boy is what you're saying? You're not saying a woman because an infant is not a woman, right?
I understand. Yeah, you
Okay,
know
good.
that
Just making sure.
we're still using gendered terms like the pronouns and
Okay.
the notion of boy, girl, right?
Okay, boy and girl. Wait, and just to confirm, for boy and girl, you would also have a whole separate like list of senses that are based off of
Thank you so much, Lowell. Thank you.
social, that are based off
There
of
are
like
social
gender
and
identity and
biological
social
senses of
commitments.
the term boy and girl. Yeah, it's really not
Okay.
that complicated.
All right.
It's really not. I don't know why you're acting like it's so complicated. Hey, dude,
Yeah, everything
you
that you
deal
said
with
is
concepts.
definitely.
You've said words on the stream that are more complicated than what I'm bringing up. Okay.
You have to admit my definition is
Parsimony
simpler
in of
though.
itself, parsimony in of itself is more of a complicated word than what I just brought up. There are going to be more people who understand what I specifically mean by gender than what you mean by parsimony. Okay, I promise you that.
Yeah.
And you know that's true.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. All right, I do have to go though, so I
Alrighty.
appreciate that, chat.
It's so interesting how people will go into that conversation. Like he went into that conversation like promoting truth is inherently good. Being trans exclusionary is promoting truth. Being trans inclusionary is not promoting truth. And then by the end of the conversation, he does acknowledge that my position was coherent, right? At least from that sense, there was not a logical problem with it. It seems like he doesn't refer to it in that sense. And that's how useful being able to explain it within this sense can be, depending on the circumstance. But again, I always like to say, like, you do not need to have some philosophical understanding of these terms to be able to know what they are. Like, you don't need a specific, hyper-specific debate bro definition of what a chair is to know typically what a chair is in a colloquial usage, right? Like, that would be absurd to say that, right? Plus, children are going to know what men and women are typically, yet they're not going to have these hyper-specific debate bro definitions of what men and women are. So just because I have a definition or I have a usage of the term doesn't mean everyone else needs that sort of usage to understand what it is. But I also think it's a rhetorically advantageous thing to have from a left-wing perspective, because otherwise they just like run with it. So I think that basically what I established is like one of the most rhetorically advantageous ways of referring to or responding to like them when they bring that up.